Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. This is the one single place where every single day at 10 a.m. we analyze a Hindu newspaper for you, both from the mains and from the prelims examination point of view, to make sure that you do not have to pick the Hindu newspaper again on your own. I hope all of you have been taking advantage of all these sessions, attending them live. Please make sure that you do subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not done so till now. Also reminding you, as soon as this session ends, we have a quiz based on these topics that we discuss here on our Telegram channel. So make sure you become a part of our Telegram channel as well by using the link given in the description of the video. Now let's see very quickly what are the topics that we will be going to discuss today. These are the topics that we have. Yesterday's biggest news, as you know, is Mr. Rahul Gandhi was disqualified as a member of parliament from the Lok Sabha. So we'll be discussing why exactly is that, why is it that the disqualification order came in from the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, what is the logic behind it. The second topic that we'll be discussing is about a remark made by the Union Law Minister recently about certain judges. The Law Minister said certain judges are anti-India. He said that the judges might have a price to pay. Then we will be discussing about a Supreme Court verdict where Supreme Court has said those who are members of any banned organization, if an organization has been banned and if anyone is still a member, they might be punished under the UAPA law. These are the main specific topics. Then we'll move on to prelim specific information. We'll be discussing from Odisha, where the Odisha government has introduced a change in their OBC law to include more OBCs in their state list. Then the central government has announced that on the lines of the Kashi Tamil Sangamam, the government of India might organize certain others Tamil Sangamam as well in Saurashtra and Uttarakhand. We'll be discussing about that. Then we will go on for Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, where the government of India has increased their subsidy once again for one more year. Then yesterday the government increased something called the STT, Securities Transaction Tax, because of which the stock market fell. It is a tax that is introduced or that is imposed on transactions in securities in the stock market. And in the end, we'll be discussing about Lok Sabha passing a bill for establishment of a GST Appellate Tribunal. These are the topics that we have lined up here for you today. All these are important, some for mains and some from prelims point of view. So let's begin without any further ado. The first topic, the topic that has been in the news since yesterday, is that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, the Lok Sabha MP from Kerala's Wayanad, or I should say ex-MP, has been disqualified from the Lok Sabha. Now, I'm sure many of you would have already read this in the news. The story behind this is very simple. The story is in 2019, during election campaigning, Mr. Rahul Gandhi had made certain statements where he said, in short, why is it that the name Modi or surname Modi is associated with multiple criminals? That is why there was a defamation case put against him, that how can you connect a certain name, a certain surname with criminals? On this charge of 2019 verdict that, or 2019 statement that he made, he actually was convicted in a Surat court. The Surat court gave him a punishment for 2 years of jail day before yesterday, that is on Thursday. Now, as per the law, as per the Representation of People Act 1951, any lawmaker, be it MP, be it member of Legislative Assembly, any lawmaker, if the lawmaker is given a sentence of 2 years or more than 2 years, that lawmaker will be disqualified immediately. Also, the disqualification will be for how much time? The disqualification will be for your punishment time period, plus after that you have to add 6 more years. This is the law. So for example, if the punishment would have been for 3 years, then disqualification would have been for 3 plus 6. Since the punishment is for 2 years, his disqualification is for 2 plus 6. So for 8 years, for example, he would not be able to contest elections. That is the basic theme of what the verdict has come. Now, let's discuss what exactly has happened. What is the law under which Mr. Gandhi has been disqualified? And are there some important Supreme Court cases that you all have to know? The statement that he made, as I said, was during the election campaigning of 2019. This is the statement where he said, I have a question. Why do all of them have the same surname, that is Modi? Now, the interesting part is, this case against him was not filed by the Prime Minister. So please don't think that the Prime Minister filed a case against him. That did not happen. There is an MLA in Gujarat whose surname again is Modi. He filed the case. So the case against him has not been filed by the Prime Minister. It has been filed by a Gujarat MLA. That MLA also has the surname Modi. He said that I am offended. How is it that you can use my surname and associate this with a criminal? Now, as you know, he was a member of parliament from Kerala's Wayanad seat, so that seat has become vacant now. Interestingly, the Surat court, when it gave the order, they also said that we are giving a bail, so he won't have to go to jail. Also, the Surat court had said that we are now suspending this punishment for 30 days. The court said we are giving 30 days of time period to Mr. Gandhi to go and appeal as well. If he wants, you can go and appeal. Now, obviously, the Congress party, people from the opposition are angry with this. The Congress party and the opposition members are saying that this is the government's way of distracting from the real issues. As you know, ever since the second half of the budget session started, the Congress and the opposition members have been demanding formation of a JPC, Joint Parliamentary Committee, into Adani issue. The Hindenburg report, the allegation that there were some corruption in Adani cases. The opposition says that since the government does not want to talk about those issues, they are diverting the attention. An example that they are giving here is that this case was put on kind of a stay order for a long time. There were no hearings that were taking place in this case. All of a sudden, 1 month back, the court decided that we will hear this case now. These are the allegations coming in from the Congress. Now, what exactly is the law under which Mr. Gandhi has been given the sentence? This is the defamation law. The defamation law is in section 500 of the IPC. So, section 500 of the IPC says that in case a person's charges on defamation are found to be true, maximum punishment that can be given is 2 years, and apart from that, a fine as well. Now, the interesting part here is, did he deserve maximum punishment or not? Because see, please understand, the interesting part is, if the punishment given to him would have been even 1 day less than 2 years, then he would not have been disqualified. The disqualification from Lok Sabha happens when the punishment is 2 years or more than 2 years. So the judge has given him maximum punishment in this case. Many people are saying that this should not have happened. He should not have been given maximum punishment because this is his first offense of this kind. However, the judge said that Mr. Gandhi has made it a habit of giving these kind of statements. The judge said that even earlier, Supreme Court had asked Mr. Gandhi not to make these kind of statements. When he was making other statements against the Prime Minister, the Supreme Court had asked him not to do that. Supreme Court had asked him to restrain, but Mr. Gandhi did not restrain. This is why, as per the judge, they are giving maximum punishment this time around, that is 2 years, which has led to the disqualification. Now, usually when the disqualification has to happen, an official order has to be released from the Lok Sabha Secretary General. This is the order that came in yesterday. As you can see here, it says, consequent upon his conviction by the Court of Chief Judicial Magistrate Surat, Shri Rahul Gandhi, member of Lok Sabha representing Wayanad Parliamentary Constituency, stands disqualified from the membership of the Lok Sabha. So, an official order has to be given by the Lok Sabha Secretary General like this, and only then the disqualification will come into effect. Now, let's try and understand how disqualification actually works. In simple terms, there are 3 ways in which a lawmaker can be disqualified from his or her seat. First way is Article 102 and Article 191. Article 102 talks about members of parliament, 191 talks about member of legislative assembly. Both of these say that members of parliament will be disqualified if they hold an office of profit, if they lose the citizenship of India, if they are of unsound mind, etc. This is reason number 1. For Mr. Rahul Gandhi, this does not apply. Second reason is anti-defection law. the one written in the 10th schedule. As you know, anti-defection law says that if you resign from your party, you vote against your party, you decide to go against your party, in all these cases you will also be disqualified. This also does not apply to him. For Mr. Rahul Gandhi, the reason under which he has been disqualified is the third reason. The third reason is Representation of People Act 1951. This is the law that also talks about disqualification in other cases. Now, the RPA 1951, please remember, it is a part of your GS2 syllabus for the mains examinations. In the mains examination in GS2, you have to read in detail about RPA 1951. Now, RPA 1951 has a lot of different sections. For us, we have to focus on Section 8. Section 8 of RPA 1951. Section 8 of RPA 1951 used to have 4 parts earlier. Fourth part was removed in 2013. So fourth part was removed in 2013. We'll discuss about that as well. A very famous case called the Lily Thomas case. Now Section 8 only has 3 parts. 1, 2 and 3. It is the third part which is of importance for us. Section 8 part 3 says, any person convicted of any other offence incurs disqualification if sentence is not less than 2 years. If the sentence is not less than 2 years, then the person will be disqualified for the period of the punishment plus 6 more years. This is the law under which Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been disqualified. Now, there is something very interesting that actually should be known to everyone. Many people are saying this is like karma coming back. In 2013, there was a very famous case called the Lily Thomas case. Now, the Lily Thomas case, basically, you will find multiple cases by the same name, Lily Thomas. The reason being, Lily Thomas, who passed away recently in 2019 actually, Lily Thomas was a very famous Supreme Court advocate. She had filed multiple cases regarding Representation of People Act only. A lot of changes in RPA have been introduced because of Lily Thomas as an advocate. She introduced a lot of ensured a lot of different cases were introduced here. In the Lily Thomas case, what happened? Please listen to this very carefully. The original law was that Part 4 of Section 8, what did it say? Part 4 of Section 8 said that if a lawmaker has been given a punishment of 2 years or more, the lawmaker will get 90 days of time to appeal. This was Part 4 of Section 8. That if a lawmaker has been given a sentence of 2 years or more, the lawmaker will be given 90 days of time to file an appeal. When the appeal is filed, the disqualification will not happen unless the final decision comes in. So if Part 4 would have existed even today, then Mr. Gandhi would not have been disqualified. Because Part 4 gave 90 days of time to appeal. If Part 4 would have existed today, Mr. Gandhi would not have been disqualified. But in Lily Thomas' case, the Supreme Court struck down this Section 8 Part 4, saying that no, the disqualification will happen immediately. Now, the interesting part is, and please listen to this, when 2013 Lily Thomas case happened, it was a Congress government in power. Remember, it was Dr. Manmohan Singh government that was in power. So when this decision came out, a lot of lawmakers, a lot of members of parliament were very worried because their cases were going on. So what happened was, Congress government had introduced an ordinance to overturn the Supreme Court judgment. But Rahul Gandhi himself had actually torn up the ordinance. Rahul Gandhi said, no, this ordinance is waste, we should not implement it, this ordinance should be removed, I support the Supreme Court order. This is what Mr. Rahul Gandhi had said. But now the same thing, the same order that he supported is coming back to bite him, because now he is being disqualified under this law. If that particular ordinance would have been implemented by the Congress government, then maybe Mr. Rahul Gandhi would not have had the time. So this again goes back to what Mr. Rahul Gandhi did earlier as well. This was the first topic. Let me take up a few questions that you would have from this topic before we go ahead to the second one. ILMA, yes, under Section 8, Part 4, they got 90 days of time. Peter has a question, what is the difference between RPA 1950 and 51? So basically, they are two different laws, different provisions. RPA 1950 mainly has provision about voters. So when you talk about RPA 1951, when you look at that, it mainly has provision about voters who can vote, etc. Most of those things. 1951 is more about voting or political parties who can contest elections. So there are different provisions by the same name, but there are different provisions. Ms. Ashu is saying, can Rahul Gandhi go to president? Rahul Gandhi can go to president who, yes, he can go to president. Who is stopping him to go to president? If your question is, can he go to president to stop the disqualification, then no. Because in this case, this has to be the decision of the Election Commission of India. Election Commission of India will come up. They will be the one who will suggest to the president also. President will not take randomly decisions on her own. Swami saying, can Rahul Gandhi again participate in elections? Yes. So basically the law is, if you are given a punishment of 2 years or more than 2 years, then you cannot contest election for the punishment period plus 6 more years. So if the punishment is 2 years, then 2 plus 6, that is 8 years he cannot contest election. After 8 years he can. So it's not a lifetime ban as such. Then I have a question, can he appeal to Supreme Court? Now this is very interesting. Please understand something. See, this case in which he has been convicted is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. Okay. Now, if it would have been a criminal case, you could again very easily go to the higher court, High Court, Supreme Court, etc. If it's a civil case, that is a longer procedure. Since it's a civil case, it's a very long procedure. Mr. Rahul Gandhi has to again go back to the same Surat court only. Then if that doesn't happen, then you have to go to High Court, then you have to go to Supreme Court. Since it's a civil case, it will take a long time for this to get resolved. So the reality is Mr. Gandhi should not expect a relief very soon. If it would have been a criminal case, then you could automatically go to higher courts, make sure that you are given bail or whatever, the conviction is overturned. But in civil case, it's a very, very long procedure. So that is a problem here. Having said that, as you know, there is nothing that stops the Supreme Court from hearing any case. So if the Supreme Court really wants to take up a case, they can. But in all probability, this would not happen. This usually doesn't happen that the defamation kind of cases go directly to the Supreme Court. They can overturn the judgment, they can hear the case, but the procedure usually is not that. Okay. Then, okay, I'll take one more question. There's a question from Lok Prahari case. There's another very interesting case called the Lok Prahari case of 2018. So basically, Lok Prahari case 2018 is a case in which the Supreme Court said that if a higher court overturns the conviction, let's say Mr. Gandhi has been convicted for 2 years. After some days, High Court or any other court overturns that conviction, then that disqualification will go away. So in the Lok Prahari case, it said that as soon as this conviction is overturned, the disqualification will go away. That is what happened in the Lok Prahari case of 2018. Lok Prahari is a kind of a civil society organization. It's kind of an NGO where ex-election commissioners, etc., ex-IAS officers, they are the ones who have made these NGOs to fight cases on behalf of the public. Let's move ahead then. The next important article to be discussed today is about a recent remark made by the Union Law Minister, a remark that has been criticized by many people. So basically what has happened is, Law Minister recently made a remark saying that certain retired judges, he said certain retired judges are questioning state policies and they are anti-India. Now this has become very problematic. How is it that the law minister can say retired judges, those judges who don't support the government policies, how can they become anti-India? The problem is, how is it that anyone who doesn't support the government policies, let's say I don't agree with certain government policies, that should not make me anti-India? That is the entire issue here. Now, Mr. Law Minister or Mr. Kiren Rijiju had made this statement. It's about 1 week back when the statement was being made. Many people, including sitting judges, have criticized this, that the government, sitting law minister specifically, should not criticize the judges because it does not send the correct signal. It does not send the signal to the judges who are working right now, because now when the Supreme Court is hearing a matter where the government of India is one party, they would think twice about giving such a decision. And that is why this kind of a remark should not have been given. Now, the judges who are retired now, they are still normal citizens. So when a judge retires, when the judge has completed their tenure, they are still citizens, so they do have the fundamental rights. They are ordinary citizens, they can make whatever statement that they want. So if a judge has retired, he or she has complete rights to say, do they support a certain government policy, do they not support a government policy. That depends on the respective judge. Just because a judge has said something which the government does not agree with, doesn't mean that the judge or any person becomes anti-India. This is what the author says. The author is giving this long quote from an American judge. It's a very old quote. This is a quote that is used in many American cases as well. In this case, the judge in America had said, those who won our independence believed that the final end of the state was to make men free to develop their faculties. Meaning that the entire idea of gaining independence was to give freedom of speech, freedom of expression to the people. And now, if the governments are curtailing that right, if the governments are not allowing people to express themselves freely, then what was the point of independence? Now, the issue here is, as you also would remember, the government versus Supreme Court battle in India has been going on for many months now. Ever since about a couple of years back, ever since we had the new Chief Justice of India, you see that the government has been making a lot of statements against the judiciary. The matter, for example, is about the appointment of the Supreme Court judges. How is it that the judges will be appointed? The government of India, from their side, the law minister, the vice president, all of them keep on saying that collegium system is not the correct manner to appoint judges. Government also wants a way to appoint certain judges. One other thing that happened recently, for which the government is not very happy, and I'm sure all of you would have read this, we discussed it as well. The Supreme Court recently had announced how from now onwards, Chief Election Commissioner appointment will be different. Remember, we read that news, we discussed that also. Chief Election Commissioner, that was earlier, just appointed by the President on the advice of the government. Now for appointment of Chief Election Commissioner also, there will have to be a committee that will be formed. Government cannot just randomly appoint anyone. So in the committee, there has to be Prime Minister, there has to be leader of opposition from the Lok Sabha, there has to be Chief Justice of India as well. So government is thinking that their monopoly over appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner has also gone. On the other hand, judges are keeping their monopoly of appointing Supreme Court and High Court judges. So the governments are not happy when they are not given that power. The article also says that the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, recently had made a statement when they were celebrating a Supreme Court event. A statement was made recently about how there are so many people in India in the jails that are not given bail. The President of India had said that people in the jail should be given bail. If they can't afford a bail, even then it is the government's responsibility to give them the bail. So on one hand, the President of India, as per the author, is actually asking the judicial authorities to be more active. And on the other hand, the government itself is saying that no, judiciary should not do anything. The judiciary should only listen to the government. If anyone who speaks against the government will be an enemy of the state, will be anti-India. So these are two very divergent views. In no successful democracy should a government actually try and stifle the voice of the judiciary. As we had discussed, there are a lot of issues between judiciary and the government right now. We already discussed about the judges' appointment. The government of India does not want the collegium system to continue. The judges want the collegium system. The judges want that there should be independence to them in appointing judges. Government, on the other hand, wants the role of the government. There are also issues of vacancies. In Supreme Court, still there are not many vacancies, but in High Court especially, there are a lot of vacancies. Most of the High Courts in India do not have their full strength of judges. Why is there a vacancy? The Supreme Court and the government blame each other. The Supreme Court says when we give a name to the government, governments don't appoint those judges. They delay the matter. Governments say that good names are not being given to us by the Supreme Court and we want to nominate our own nominees. So the tussle between the judiciary and the government has also led to a lot of vacancies. And not just this, there are also issues of post-retirement assignments. You all keep on reading in the news how the government appoints retired judges to important positions. Just a few weeks back, we saw how the government appointed some retired judges to the post of the governors of certain states. Remember, the governor of certain states, they were appointed amongst those people who are retired judges. This is also a big problem. Please understand this from a judge point of view. A Supreme Court judge retires at the age of 65, right? Now 65 in earlier times used to be an old number or a big number, but now 65 is not that high a number. The health standards of the people are increasing, people are taking much more care of themselves. After 65, the judges don't want to retire. A lot of them are fit, healthy, they can work. So many of them don't want to sit at home, many of them don't want to retire, so they want some other assignment as well. Now what does the government do? Every single year, the government has to make various committees for various purposes. For example, farm protests started, so they will say, okay, we'll make a farm bill committee. They will look into farm bills. Then if someone starts some other protest, let's say, sir, old pension scheme should come back, new pension scheme is bad, government will say, okay, we will make one more committee to study the old pension scheme versus the new pension scheme. Every single month, you will see so many committees being made by the government. Whenever there is a protest, the government will appoint a committee. Most of these committees are the ones which are headed by retired Supreme Court judges. Do you know that judges after their retirement, when they head these committees, they earn much more money as compared to what their salary was when they were Supreme Court judges? I don't know if you know this or not. When these judges actually work as chairman of these committees or when they work in these committees, they earn much more money as compared to what they were earning in the salary when they were Supreme Court judges. So a lot of Supreme Court judges also look forward to these assignments. That when we retire, we want to be on good terms with the government so that we can also have these kind of appointments, we can also head some committees. This is again a problem. When the judges look forward to post-retirement assignments, this also does not allow the judges to be very fair. The solution can be, for example, in USA, Supreme Court judges have no retirement age. So in US Supreme Court, a Supreme Court judge can work even the judge is 80, 85 years old, the judge can still work. So in US, there is no retirement age of the Supreme Court judges, and that is why you will not see Supreme Court judges in US, etc. looking for any other appointment, which is the case in India. A lot of suggestions have been given. The biggest suggestion is that we should increase the retirement age to at least 70, because now many judges are taking much better care of themselves. They are much more healthy. India anyways has so many pending cases. When we have crores and crores of pending cases, why do you forcefully want to retire judges who are fit enough to work? All these are ideas that have been going on. Now, I'll tell you one more very interesting thing. Government versus judges is not just a debate in India. If you read international news, do you know what is happening in Israel right now? In Israel also, government versus judiciary is a huge issue that has come up. So government versus judiciary is not just a problem in India. In Israel, for example, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to make many changes in the Supreme Court. For example, Israel now, or Prime Minister specifically, is trying to introduce a law under which Parliament will have the power to overturn any judgment of the Supreme Court just by a simple majority. This is what Israel is doing. That they can overturn any law of any judgment of the Supreme Court by a simple majority. Not just this, Parliament should have the power to remove any judge by a simple majority. Judges in the Supreme Court in Israel, the government wants them to be appointed by a 9-member committee which has majority of government only. So it is not just in India, but everywhere across the world, the governments do try to get a stronger control over the judiciary. In Israel, it's leading to a lot of protests. In Israel, about 500,000 people are actually on the streets protesting against this, protesting against their own prime minister. They don't want this kind of a thing to happen. So control of governments over judiciary is a global issue. It's not really just an India-based issue, because every government that comes to power wants to have control over judiciary so that they can decide how the government will run, they can decide how the country will run. But for a democracy, this is very, very bad. For a free democracy, when people think that government is against them, the only option that people have is to go to judiciary. And when judiciary itself is dependent on the government, that is not a good sign for any good democracy in the long run. This was the second topic. Saya has a question. Salary of committees heads such as retired judges are paid from, every salary is paid from Consolidated Fund of India only. There is no difference. Every salary goes from Consolidated Fund of India. Okay. I would advise Shankar, please don't copy paste and spam. I can read your comment once. So let's not spam. You are just hiding everyone else's comments. That is not a really good practice. I will read, but please don't do that again. The comment is, can he be reinstated after going for appeal, getting stay order? The window time open to appeal. No, there is no window time. If he goes to higher court, if he gets a stay order. So there is a very important catch here. So the catch here is, let's say that the Supreme Court, or let's say Election Commission announces that we have to hold the election again. Now, if the elections are held again in Wayanad and someone else wins, after that, even if Supreme Court puts a stay order on Rahul Gandhi's judgment, then he will not get the seat back. He can contest the elections again, but he will not get the seat back. This is why many people are criticizing, why is it that the Lok Sabha or the Election Commission is in such a hurry? Let me repeat again. If Rahul Gandhi goes to, let's say, High Court or Supreme Court, but before them giving a judgment, Election Commission of India holds a by-election in Wayanad and someone else gets elected to the seat. In that case, Mr. Gandhi will not get the seat back, but he will be allowed to contest elections in the next election without being disqualified. So that is why there is such a hurry. If he gets the reversal of his conviction, then he will get the seat back. But if before that the by-elections already have happened, then he will not get the seat back. Okay. Then I have a question. What should be the way forward to resolving these issues? See, the problem is in these kind of issues between government and the judiciary, the government and judiciary at the end of the day would have to resolve their differences by talking, would have to see what is in the best interest of the country. As common citizens, you and me, we really can't do anything about this. When there is a difference of opinion between judiciary and the government, they would have to resolve it amongst themselves. They themselves would have to make sure that when their differences exist, it is the government that takes the call, of someone between the two organs has to play the role of the big brother. Perfect. Let's move on then. The next important article from the mains point of view is, Supreme Court has said that anyone who is anywhere related to an organization banned by the government will be convicted under UAPA. Now, what exactly does it mean? Let's try and understand in very, very simple terms. You would have seen in a lot of cases, the government of India puts a ban on certain organization. The government say these are terrorist organizations, or these are terror groups or terrorist individuals, and the government bans those. Now, earlier, the issue was, let's assume there is an organization called XYZ, whatever, and the government has banned it. So, any person who was an active member of these organizations, any active member means person who used to take part in their meetings, person who used to contribute, person who was an office bearer, etc. So, anyone who used to be an active member, they would also be punished under law. That was the law earlier. That if an organization has been banned and a person is an active member, then the person could also be punished. Now the Supreme Court has said, doesn't matter if you're an active member or not. Even if you are a member just on paper. There are so many people who are just members of organization, but they never attend any meetings. You would have seen many political parties give ads these days that if you want to join a political party, just give a missed call on this number. Have you seen those ads? Just give a missed call on this number and you will become a member. So If let's say you give a missed call on that number, you automatically become a member, but then you forget about it, you don't even go to their meetings or their events, but you are still a member. The Supreme Court says that if anyone is a member of any banned organization, even if you are not an active member, even then you can be punished under UAPA. So this is even a stricter law as compared to what was the case earlier. Any member, doesn't matter active or inactive, will be punished if they are members of any terrorist banned organization under the UAPA law. Now the UAPA law is, as you know, a very strict law. It is the UAPA law under which the government of India has the power to actually punish people who are involved in terrorist activities against India. There is a very strict punishment given to the people under this law. Also, please remember, whenever you read about UAPA, in a lot of newspaper articles, you will see that the articles say UAPA is a draconian law. Many newspaper articles use this word, that it's a draconian law. However, please make sure in your answer writing you do not use this word. Please don't use such a word in your answer writing. This is a law that is very strict, yes, but as long as it is an official law, in our answers we should not use the word it's a draconian law or anything like that. Those who want to criticize the law in the newspaper readings can use this word, but they are not writing the UPSC exam. So in the UPSC exam, I would highly urge you not to use these words, it's a draconian law, bad law. As long as it is an official law of the government of India, we will just abide by that. Okay. So as per the UAPA law, government of India can ban certain organizations under section 3. So under section 3, the government can give a list that these are the organizations which are banned. Now tell me this, let me ask you a question here. Can the government of India only ban organizations as terrorist organizations, or can the government of India ban certain individuals as well? What do you think? Under UAPA, is banning of individuals also allowed, or can the government only ban organizations? And please don't Google. Tell me without Googling. Okay, individuals also, both, okay. Individuals as well, okay. Most of you are absolutely correct. The government can ban both. So the interesting part is, when the law was first formed, please remember this, when the law was first formed, the UAPA law, at that time the government only had the power to ban organizations and not individuals. This provision that the government can ban individuals also was included much later on. It was not in the original law, it included later on. Okay. The UAPA, as you can see here, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, is the main law of the government of India to fight against those involved in terror cases against India. Now this UAPA Act says under section 10 that anyone who has membership of banned or unlawful associations will also be charged with UAPA only. Even if you are an inactive member, even if you are not taking part in any meetings, any events, even then you can be punished under the UAPA. Supreme Court also said that this is not a violation of your fundamental rights. For example, many people might argue that, sir, under Article 19, I have the right, I have the freedom to form association, right? Article 19 gives you the right to form associations, gives you the right to take part in certain associations, etc. Is this law, the UAPA, against that? No. The Supreme Court is saying that fundamental rights are not absolute, meaning that the Supreme Court doesn't think that UAPA, which bans your membership of unlawful organization, is against your fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are separate. There are certain restrictions put on them. You still cannot become a part of these illegal, unlawful organizations. Now, UAPA as a law has been extremely important. Ever since 2014, the new government came into India. It's not that the law came into being with them. The law of UAPA is very old. But in the news, the coverage about UAPA became very important and became very common, especially after 2014. So the UAPA law originally was passed in 1967. During 1967, the law mainly was to fight against those who are involved in terror cases against India. Now, the interesting part is, even those who are living abroad, please remember, even those who are living abroad, but they are involved in terrorist charges or terrorist activities against India, even they can be charged under UAPA. So UAPA mainly talks about terrorist activities. Section 15 talks about what is a terrorist act. It will be punishable with at least 5 terms. It may also result in death sentence as well. This act applies to citizens of India. Also, persons in service of the government, wherever they may be, even if they are outside India, they will still be covered. And persons on ships, aircraft registered in India, wherever they are, they will also be covered. Please do remember, and I am repeating this again, even if a person is right now outside India, but is involved and is a part of conspiracy against India, even that person will be covered under the UAPA law. In 2019, some very important changes were made in this law. For example, first major change that was made was government can designate individuals as terrorists as well. The question that I had just asked you. In these kind of laws, it is not just important to remember that individuals can be charged. It is also important to remember that individuals can be charged, but it was not in the original law. It was in 2019 that this change was made, that from 2019 onwards, individuals can also be charged as terrorists and not just organizations. Now, who actually are covered under this act? Anyone who commits or participates in the acts of terrorism, anyone who prepares for terrorism, promotes terrorism, or even is involved in terrorism. Now, usually this third point that you see here, this is misused a lot by the authorities. The third point is anyone who promotes terrorism. Now, the question is, it's difficult to define what is promoting terrorism. So let's say if someone is making a speech criticizing the government, that person can be charged with UAPA, that you are promoting terrorism, you are encouraging people to attack the government, you are encouraging people to actually harm the government. That is why it has become such a law which makes it very difficult for anyone to get a bail. If anyone is caught under UAPA, it's very difficult to get out, very difficult to get a bail. It has a lot of very important provisions, and that is why critics of this law call it a draconian law. But again, I would advise you not to use that word in your answer writing. Please don't write it's a draconian law. Doesn't matter you like it or not. Under this law, the NIA has the power to seize your property as well. If they think that you are involved in these activities, NIA will investigate the case. Investigation will be done by officers of the rank of Deputy Superintendent or Assistant Commissioner of Police or above. By the way, let me ask you one more question. When did NIA come into being, or after which event exactly did NIA come into being? National Investigation Agency. It's an agency that you read a lot about, right? NIA has done this, NIA has done that. NIA came into being when exactly? What happened that NIA was formed? Yes. Yes. This was after the Mumbai terror attacks, the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. After that terror attack, it is when the government realized that we need an organization specifically to fight and investigate terror-related cases. So NIA is specifically made for terror-related cases. A lot of times, students have this question that why do we have so many organizations for investigation? We have ED, we have CBI, we have NIA, etc. Plus, remember, everyone has a different mandate. Each of these organizations are made for different types of purposes. So NIA is mainly for terror-related cases and their investigation and nothing else. These were the topics from the prelims point, from the mains examination point of view so far. Let's now move on to some other topics such as the ones that are important from the prelims point of view. Before that, let me quickly take up a few questions. Okay. Abhishek is saying the word draconian is to be avoided for every bill. Abhishek, I would suggest that yes. Because see, as a neutral person, as a neutral aspirant, let's not make any judgment about what kind of a law government is passing. If the government is introducing a law, passing a law, let's not call it draconian. Every law can be misused, every law can be good, every law can be bad. It's not good that we use these kind of words. Leave it to the critics of the government, let them use it. You should not use these kind of laws, these kind of words. Shankar is saying, how can we check that members of any banned organization if members unknowingly give missed calls? That is what the court to decide. That is what the investigation agency to decide. Plus, if the number is registered in your name, you are the one responsible with what is happening from that number. Okay, I'll take one last question. If they come out of organization, he's not a member now, will he be charged under UAPA? No, if he is not a member now, then he will not be charged under UAPA. Okay, let's move on then. Now we'll be focusing on some important news stories from prelims point of view, specifically some fact-based topics that have been covered in the Hindu newspaper today. The first important story from the prelims point of view is from the state of Odisha. Odisha government has been trying to make changes in their OBC law to include some more castes in the state list. Now please understand something. OBC reservation or OBC list is a very interesting concept in India. As you would know, there are two separate OBC lists. There is a separate OBC list by the center and there is a separate OBC list by the state. So there is a different center list and there is a different state list. For example, it might happen that there may be people from a certain caste, they might be included in central government OBC list. So they will be eligible for OBC reservation in central government jobs, but they might not be included in the state OBC list. In that case, they might not be eligible for OBC reservation in state government jobs. So the OBC list is different in India. It's different for center, different for state. And this becomes a problem. The reason being that when there are two separate lists, there's a lot of confusion in the aspirants also under which particular list am I being covered. So what Odisha government is doing is they are passing a law in which, as per the Odisha government, what they are doing is they are now giving power to the Odisha government. Odisha government will have the power that any caste that is already a part of central list of OBC, the Odisha government can now make sure that that caste becomes a part of state OBC list as well. Let me try and repeat, and please listen to me very, very carefully. As I said, there are different OBC lists. There is a separate OBC list for the center and there is a separate OBC list for the state. Odisha government has passed a law under which if the center OBC list has certain names or certain caste, state government will have the power to make these castes a part of state list as well. This is what the state government of Odisha has been doing. That if the state government wants, then by notification, they may include some backward class in the state list if they are already in the central list with relation to Odisha. This is the main change that the government of Odisha is doing. The reason being the government of Odisha wants to have similar OBC list for center and for the state, because when we have different OBC lists for center and for the state, there is a lot of confusion about how the people should prepare for the jobs, who should be included, who should be given reservation and not. This is the idea. Now, as I told you, the problem with OBC reservation is that they are identified differently at center and at the state levels. State OBC list is separate, the center OBC list is separate. On the other hand, for SC and ST, that is not a problem. For SC and ST, they are identified with any respective state or union territories. They have only one single list. So for SC, ST, that is not really a problem. For scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, there is only one single list and they are identified under that list in both central government and in the state government jobs. But on the other hand, when it comes to the OBCs, they have two different lists. This is why there is a problem and many of them don't get reservation. Odisha government is now trying to remove that. From this topic, please do remember this fact. While SC, ST reservation happens to the same list, on the other hand, the OBC reservation does not happen to the same list and this becomes a problem. There is also an important case from the Supreme Court that you must remember. There is a case called Ram Singh and others versus the Union of India of 2015. So this 2015 case of Ram Singh and others versus Union of India, in this case the Supreme Court also said that the two lists should be very similar to each other so that both the governments can give benefits to all the castes that are involved in the two lists. The Supreme Court in 2015 said that there should be similar lists both at the center and at the state level so that the reservation benefits to be given to the OBCs are not different from the center or from the state government level. This was the Ram Singh case. Please do remember that as well. Next important news story from prelims point of view is the Government of India has announced that they will be organizing new Tamil Sangamams. As you know, recently the Government of India had organized in Varanasi a Kashi Tamil Sangamam. So in simple terms, Kashi Tamil Sangamam was an event where the state of Tamil Nadu and the state of Uttar Pradesh came together for cultural exchanges. There were major events organized in Kashi, that is Varanasi, highlighting the history and culture of Tamil Nadu, highlighting the history and culture of the Sangam literature, etc. The Government of India now wants to have similar kind of events organized in different parts of the country. The Government of India is planning 2 more such Tamil Sangamam events. Where are they? First, it will be in Saurashtra, so Gujarat, and other will be in Uttarakhand. These are the 2 places where these Tamil Sangamam events will now be organized. Now, why is it that the government has chosen Uttarakhand, Kedarnath? As you know, Kedarnath is one of the 4 dhams of Hinduism. A lot of pilgrims visit Kedarnath year after year. Especially a lot of pilgrims from South India, from Tamil Nadu also visit the Kedarnath temple. There are a lot of devotees of Lord Shiva in Tamil Nadu. Many of them visit the Kedarnath temple. Because of that, it has been chosen as a place where this kind of Tamil Sangamam event should be held. Now, this event, that is the Tamil Sangamam event, is actually a part of a bigger government scheme. There is a scheme that many of you might have heard of, that is called Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat. Have you heard of that scheme? Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme. In fact, let me ask you a question, and please try and answer this without Googling. Without Googling, can you tell me which ministry is responsible for Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme? And please don't Google. Which ministry is responsible for Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme, which is a ministry that is looking into the implementation of this scheme? Ministry of Culture is what I am getting. Tourism, culture, tourism. Not culture, not tourism. At least I am glad you are not Googling. Not culture, not tourism. Okay, we'll discuss in just a bit. Not culture, not tourism. Okay, I have a few people giving the correct answer. It is actually education. It's actually education, Ministry of Education. So it's an interesting fact for the prelims point of view. It's Ministry of Education, not Ministry of Culture, not Ministry of Tourism. So something that you should remember. There is no Ministry of Human Resource now. It's Ministry of Education now. Ministry of Human Resource doesn't exist now. Anyways, so this scheme mainly is about bringing states of India together. As per this scheme, 2 states should pair up and exchange each other's culture. So in this case also, Tamil Nadu paired up with UP. And now we have different other plannings from the side of the Government of India. They are trying to include Gujarat and they are trying to include Uttarakhand also over here. Now, what is the story behind this? What is the story connection between Kashi and Tamil Nadu? As you would know, it's actually a part of big culture. Even today in Tamil Nadu, a lot of families, before people get married, they first visit Varanasi, they first visit Kashi Vishwanath temple, they take blessings and then they come back to Tamil Nadu and then they get married. So it's a very common culture even today, that a lot of people before marrying in Tamil Nadu should at least once visit the Kashi Vishwanath temple in Varanasi and then they come back. So there is a big connection, there is a very old historical connection between Kashi Vishwanath temple and Tamil Nadu. And there is also a story behind this. So the story is of a king called Parakram Pandya. So it's a Pandya king. In the 15th century, apparently the story is that Pandya king in the 15th century in Madurai wanted to build a Lord Shiva temple. So what he did was, this king went to Kashi and brought back a Shiva lingam. Now when he was coming back, he was about to reach Madurai, he rested at a particular place nearby Madurai. But after resting, when he went back up or when he got back up, when he wanted to move towards his own hometown, what happened was the cow that was carrying the Shiva lingam did not move. and the king thought that maybe the cow and the lord wants that this is the place where temple should be set up. And this is where the temple or the lingam was established. That town in Tamil Nadu is still called the Sivakasi town. The Sivakasi town is named after that story only, with the Seva Lingam that was bought from Kashi by the king was settled there. It was erected there only. That is why there is still a big connection between Tamil Nadu and between Varanasi even today. And that is what the government of India has been trying to make even stronger. As I discussed, this is a part of Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme. It's an old scheme launched in 2015. The idea is that two states should pair with each other. Let's say Punjab and Karnataka should pair, Gujarat and West Bengal should pair with each other, Maharashtra and Nagaland should pair with each other, so that the states can organize cultural events in each other's states, learn each other's language, share each other's history, so that people of India have this feeling of oneness. Rather than actually having a feeling of belonging to a state, you have a feeling of belonging to the entire country. That is the objective. It is done by Ministry of Education. All the states and UTs are expected to have a pairing with someone. This is to bring more diversity, promote national integration. This is the Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme. Do read about that as well. Then small news from the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. The government of India has announced that under Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, they will be continuing the subsidy for one more year, subsidy of 200 rupees on a cylinder. So basically, the government of India, as you know, runs a scheme called the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Under Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, the government of India first started giving free LPG cylinder connections to BPL, that is below poverty line households. Please remember, for below poverty line households, the women in the household were given free LPG gas cylinders under this particular scheme. When it first started, it only included below poverty line families. But later on, there were other families that were also included. Which were the other families? The other families now, which have also been include scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So those who have been given houses from the government under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. AAY is Antyodaya Anna Yojana. Antyodaya Anna Yojana, under which free ration is given. They are also included under the list. Most backward class, tea garden workers, forest dwellers who live in forests and islands. So apart from below poverty line households, now these households also are given free LPG connection under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Apart from that, they are given a 200 rupee subsidy on the LPG cylinder for up to 12 cylinders in a year. Please do remember, this is important from the prelims point of view. This is important. Please remember all these information. Number one, the cylinder subsidy that is given is only for maximum of 12 refills in a year. It's not for unlimited amount of refill. So you can only have subsidy for first 12 refills in 1 year. Secondly, which families are included? Earlier it was only below poverty line families. Now other families are also included. Also, the logic is, the connection, the LPG connection, will be officially on the name of the oldest women in the family. So it is the oldest women in the family on whose name this connection will be given from the side of the government. This is what the government's Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana is. Please do remember that. Then another very small news coming in yesterday, the government of India increased something called the Securities Transaction Tax. Securities Transaction Tax is a tax that is imposed when you deal in the stock market, when you deal in securities. This is a tax in short which is called STT. Now STT or Security Transaction Tax is an additional tax which traders etc. in India would have to pay if they are dealing in futures and options. It's a very marginal increase in terms of percentage, but those who are trading in crores and crores, for them even this marginal increase will be a good amount. So basically, the tax has been increased from 0.625% to 0.05% on STT. On the other hand, for future contract, the tax has been increased from 0.125 to 0.01%. So there are certain changes that have been introduced mainly in the STT, that is Security Transaction Tax. This is why yesterday you saw even the stock market declined considerably after this tax was introduced. Now, the interesting part is no other country in the world actually imposes this kind of tax, the Security Transaction Tax. It is a tax that is levied that both the purchaser and the seller has to pay. So if you are purchasing securities, even then you have to pay. If you are selling securities, even then you have to pay the tax. This is what makes the taxes, or this is what makes trading slightly more difficult in India as compared to the other countries. You have lesser margins. We also have other taxes in the stock market. For example, we have dividend distribution tax. Dividend, as you know, if you hold certain shares, certain stocks of a company, and the company has made good profit in that year, they may decide to give you certain profit shares. That is called dividend. So dividend in simple terms means, let's say if I hold 100 shares of a company, let's say TCS, and TCS decides that they want to give 1 rupees per share as a dividend because they made a lot of profit. Even on that dividend, you have dividend distribution tax. So all these kind of taxes are imposed by the government. STT is an important tax. Do remember this. This is a tax that is imposed on security trading in the stock market. The last prelims based topic for today is that the Lok Sabha yesterday passed a bill approving setting up of GST Appellate Tribunal. And what exactly is this? As the name suggests, GST Appellate Tribunal is if you have to appeal in case of a GST decision, this is where your appeal will go to. This is called the GST Appellate Tribunal. Now, the concept of tribunal is very simple. There are kind of specialized quasi-judicial bodies. The courts in India, the judges might not be well aware of many important issues. The courts in India might not have technical information about taxation purposes, about environment, etc. So to hear specialized cases, there are other bodies that are set up which are called tribunals. So GST Appellate Tribunal will hear appeals in case of any GST related disputes. Right now what used to happen was any GST related dispute used to go to High Court. And when they used to go to High Court, there was a lot of backlog in the High Court. To avoid that from happening, to ensure that GST cases go to GST Appellate Tribunal, this tribunal has now or will now be set up since the Lok Sabha has now accepted this. What is the level of the tribunals? Usually, there are some exceptions, but usually tribunals are considered as below the High Courts. So that means that, let's say the NGT, National Green Tribunal, when they have to give a decision, you have to appeal against their decision, you have to go to High Court. So it is tribunals in most cases. There are certain exceptions, like the Armed Forces Tribunal is an exception. So there are tribunals above which there are High Courts, above which there are Supreme Courts. So this is where the tribunals come in. They are quasi-judicial bodies, mainly formed so that they can hear specialized cases on certain technical matters where the courts, the judges might not have their expertise. Like environment cases, tax-related disputes, all these kind of cases come under tribunals. Now, please do remember, tribunals were not a part of the original constitution. They were introduced later on by 42nd Amendment Act 1976, which introduced two important articles. There's an article called 323A and 323B. Article 323A talks about administrative tribunals. Administrative tribunals are those which are set up for administrative purposes, for hearing cases about IAS officers, etc. And 323B is for other tribunals. Other tribunals, for example, National Green Tribunal, Tribunal for Taxation, even the GST Tribunal will come in under this particular article only. So Article 323A is only for administrative purposes, that is CAT, Central Administrative Tribunal or State Administrative Tribunal. On the other hand, the 323B article talks about other tribunals that can be set up apart from the Administrative Tribunal. This is the difference between Article 323A and B. Please do remember, this is important from prelims point of view. As I said, Article 323A is for administrative purposes. 323B is for other purposes. Second major difference, 323A, it can only be set up by Parliament. only Parliament can set up administrative tribunals, while 323B can be set up by both Parliament and the state as well. Even the states can pass it. Third important difference, Article 323A, these tribunals don't have a hierarchical structure. So they don't have one tribunal, then appellate tribunal above that, then one above that. No. 323A, no hierarchy of tribunals is allowed. 323B, hierarchy is allowed. That is how appellate tribunals are formed. So you will not find appellate tribunals in administrative tribunals. You will only find appellate tribunals in other cases like NGT, etc. That is why 323 is different. Hierarchy can be created. Difference between 323A and 323B has been asked in the prelims earlier as well. Questions on tribunals are common, so please make sure the question in tribunals are very possible to be asked. Please do remember this. All these details are important from the examination point of view. This brings us to the end of the Hindu newspaper discussion today. There are a couple of practice questions here for you. First, how are the members of parliament disqualified in India? Explain with reference to the Lee Thomas case of 2013. Second, the doctrine of separation of powers is at the bedrock of India's democracy. Elaborate with reference to the ongoing tussle between the government and the judiciary. I hope all of you learned a lot of things either from this session or from the discussion that you were having in the chat. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow, same time at 10 a.m. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.